Hi, I'm Leah.
And I'm Jessie,
Welcome back to the Golden Thread.
the podcast where we share and discuss responsive relationships and connecting with children.
Today, we want to explore the tool of respect, reflect, and relate for responsive care and relationships.
Yes. So last episode, we talked about observation and we kind of introduced this respect, reflect, relate tool.
Hmm.
We talked about some definitions and how those, like how that tool and that kind of specific definition for it can help us be in the moment with children. Um, so now we just want to kind of explore that a little bit more, like break it down just a little bit further. I don't think we need to give the definitions again, but could you talk to me a little bit about uh, just kind of what the process, what using the tool like looks like in a very practical sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about respect, reflect, relate, and how we discuss it as how we present it in the course, we talk about how it is the process of seeing this child in front of us and just being there with no expectations or judgment or anything and just seeing this child and watching to see what they're going to do. And then the reflect step is we really are just wondering what's going on for this child. What are they trying to do? Are they trying to use strategies? What's going on in this moment? And at the same moment, thinking about and what does this bring up for me? Like, am I cool with this? Is this stressful for me? Whatever. And then the relate step is where we take all of that together and then choose how we're going to respond to the child and what it is that we think is going to move this to the next step, whatever that might be for the child. So it sounds like all of these steps and all of these things, and that it should take 10 minutes every time it happens, but it actually is almost instantaneous in the classroom. And I feel like also for families where we're continually looking at our children to see, oh, okay, are they going to finish eating what's on that high tray or should I grab that real quick before it gets tossed? Is kind of the same thing. So it's really just watching, noticing what's happening, and then deciding what we are going to do to respond to that child in the moment.
I really appreciate the significant difference between responding to that child and reacting to that child. Um, and I think that it highlights the fact that this respect, reflect, relate tool is something that we're going to intentionally use.
Hmm.
And by bringing it into intention, that means that we can do it in the moment to make decisions in the moment that are meaningful to the child and their development, as well as will work for us and what we're trying to accomplish. And we can also use it with those, quick observations or learning stories or, whatever we've done to capture the progress the child has made with us and with their time with us. Um, Reflect on that and think about the future as well. So it's a very like versatile thing that we can bring intention to, um, and make it work in many different ways that a child is developing. Kind of two things at the same time is what I want. Because, like I'm mentioning, that we're using this with intention and it can look very different. Last time when we were talking about observation, you mentioned your grandma saying about there are as many ways as there are
Desire.
desire. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So like it can look that way for the ways we capture our observations, and it can look that way for the way that we use this respect, reflect, relate
Hmm.
process of thinking. But that also reminds me that last time you brought up learning stories,
Hmm.
uh, but you didn't quite go fully into what that learning story is. So I was wondering if you can explain learning story as an observation tool and how you can implement a respect, reflect, relate process with a learning story.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Not a lotly. Um,
Axolotly.
absolutely. I think learning stories are one of my most favorite ways of putting respect, reflect, relate into action because I have personal experience with it. So when my son was in preschool, he was with this amazing family childcare provider who was just so thoughtful and intentional with what she did with the children. And one of the things that she would do is learning stories. And so she would document maybe a 2-minute conversation. Sometimes it was even shorter. And she would be like, okay, your child said this, and this is how I responded. And your child did X, Y, and Z, and I observed, and your child did X, Y, and Z, right? But it would come together as this beautiful just story of her saying, I see your child, I see what he's interested in and what he's doing. And we discussed a little bit what he's thinking because he is 3. And so he has that capacity to share that language with me. And then she would kind of wrap it all up with a picture of what he was doing or a video sometimes of what had been happening during that time. And then also just we've talked about it before, but making learning visible. And so it was a way for me to hear from her as the educator, this is what your child is working on right now. You know, he's really interested in making these patterns, or he is very focused on building his fine motor skills. But because it came in a story, it felt like this thing I just want to hold on to. And it just felt so incredible as a parent because my child was seen. And I had that experience multiple times with that childcare provider, which was wonderful. And I treasure those learning stories. But then at the same time, I also had a mentor, a colleague who was also using them as kind of a way to talk to our network of infant toddler specialists in Colorado about how we can capture learning and make it visible to their families, infants and toddlers families. But also, like, she would use it, like, if I went somewhere and was facilitating, she'd write a learning story about what it was that I was doing and what folks were learning and how that all came together. And I think what really makes it feel like respect, reflect, relate is that it it's I'm seeing you with no expectations. I'm seeing you right there where you are, whether you're a tiny human or a grown human, and I'm wondering about what you're doing and trying to understand your goals, and then I'm telling you what connections are being made and how you are doing things or how I understand that you are doing things, which really I think comes back to many of the things that we have already talked about on the podcast, where for children to feel safe and to be ready to learn and explore, they need to be seen. And babies are born wanting to engage back and forth with us. And this is a concrete way to make an observation that tells your child, "Oh, I see you and you matter." And I feel like I totally like went way offline with that, but was that what you
No,
were hoping for?
that I love it. I
Okay.
like to hear because it sounds like you're bringing in. I love that a little bit of behind the scenes here. We're having to re-record again, you guys.
We are. We are.
We're doing technical difficulties, having to switch systems over with their operating system and everything. But that also is giving me a look into the way you're explaining it. This time is bringing in a lot more threads from other things that we have explored and we're going to explore in the future.
Good.
And I really like the way that you're able to bring those in and kind of time in together with this concept. I really appreciate learning stories as an example of how we can do uh like an intentional and even like longer term process of respect, reflect, relate. And I think that it it speaks to a way that families or you know home primary care people can make like not just make learning visible, but make their experience and what they know about their child and how their child is developing a part of the way they discuss about how their home is going to run or how they would like other people to approach their child in certain experiences and stuff. Um, because then you like having these documentations, and even if it's just, a quick 1 minute exchange written down or maybe a video of it, can let parents share with each other, because not always both parents are going to be there. So being able to share with each other, this is the thing I saw, here's the way I documented it, and moving forward, I know that the next step in this process is, let's say an infant is doing tummy time and trying to roll over, and you saw an infant reaching for a toy. So then you can share, oh, they were reaching for a toy. That means that they are interested in play. And I know that the next step in their tummy time is for them to start moving their body in more ways, moving their arms and their legs in more ways that are going to help them accomplish getting further and further toward toys that they want to interact with.
Hmm.
And so I think that's really great. I've never had an experience with learning stories. I love the way you talk about learning stories, but I do journal. I like to journal for myself, and I journal for like in the relationships I have with the adults around me as well, so that I can, it's kind of a reflective practice, right? So I can look
Hmm.
at the way I handled a situation or maybe a conversation I had with someone, and I want to like really slow down and understand what was being communicated to me without any judgment, and then what I can take forward from that.
Hmm.
Um, so journaling, another great way to be respectful in a respect, reflect, relate process.
Hmm.
And I think that we can take these things that we do in our day-to-day lives, like you've said. I think you might have said this last episode too, but like you've said before, certainly, um, it's things that we're already doing, maybe things that we're doing sort of intuitively, but we can take them and apply them to the way we are in relationship with the children that we care for and the babies that we are, exploring the development of
Hmm.
in our spaces. So I also went on a rant, but yes, thank you. Thank you for your experience with learning stories and for sharing that kind of process of how it looks a little bit, using a learning story or to apply the respect, reflect, relate tool. We mentioned it last episode, and I've mentioned it already now, but a lot of the thing that resonates for me in this responsive care process and with respect, reflect, relate is the intentionality. Being intentional is very important to me in my life, just overall, and also in the work I do with babies, in being responsive. But I feel like that's kind of an intuitive experience for me because I like to be intentional. Do you have a more like academic explanation of how intentionality can help build a responsive relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely building on a few of the topics we've already touched on about infants and toddlers, being experience expectant, about this desire that babies have to interact with us. I think when we connect with them and we are intentional, they know, right? The same way that, like, if you're staring at your phone and your older child keeps talking to you and keeps talking to you, and you're like, what? Like, they know when they don't have your full intention, and babies do too. And so I think one of the things that I really appreciate is that research has told us that babies and their grown-ups aren't in sync all the time. We've talked about serve and respond, and where the child is reaching out and trying to engage with you, and you're responding correctly or not. And babies give us so much grace. They're like, "Oh, it's okay. They missed that cue. It's cool. I'll keep trying because I know they want to connect with me." And so they try again, and eventually we catch it. The thing about, and we'll talk about this more in a couple more episodes, so don't worry. That's a teaser for where we're headed. Uh, but when we are intentional, when we take this time to pause and look at a child with unconditional regard and be like, whatever it is that you're doing, I think it's amazing in this moment. And I just want to learn more and know more. When we take that time and really can observe and wonder what's going on for them and make these hypotheses about what they're trying to experience or what their goals are. And then we respond from that place as opposed to responding from a, oh, okay, that's my baby. That's what they're doing. They're pushing a car, right? When we do it with intention, it actually helps us to align with them more closely, and they feel that difference and they feel connected. And as we continue to go through this podcast and are discussing about how we align and how we connect with children, one of the other things that we'll touch on is that the the stronger connection that you have, the understanding of your child's goals and desires and what they're doing, the less harder they have to work to explain what it is what they're doing, which might feel kind of crazy if you're like, my baby's 3 months. What is my baby doing right now? What does this mean, Leah and Jesse? But as educators who have been with infants and with toddlers and children of all ages, we know that when a child has to work harder to tell you what they need, that creates fiction in the relationship. It makes it stressful. Like they're unhappy and you're unhappy. And so when we respond with intention, it gives us an opportunity to meet them where they are and kind of travel that road a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah. And I think too, responding with intention, like metering our response to what the child is actually doing and what we wonder they are developing in that moment, it helps prevent that buildup of maybe even resentment that we can get oftentimes. And I've had this happen in my home too. Um, when I see a child in my home that I've worked so hard to keep in an organized and usable place, and a child is creating chaos that I know is going to make it harder for me to continue moving forward doing the things that I have to do in the home. Sometimes I can look at the way that child is experiencing the space that they're sharing with me and see it as more work instead of seeing it as, oh, they are learning. You've given an example of your child like pouring water. They're
Yeah.
learning about, babies do physics all the time, right? So they're learning about how liquids flow, and they're learning about the capacity of different containers, and um, doing those sorts of base sort of, I mean, it's literally physics experiments, right? Helps them build up their statistical thinking. It helps them understand the world that they're moving through. It helps them get to the point where they can get up in the morning and pour themselves a bowl of cereal and milk, you know? Um, but sometimes I know that in my space, if I'm not being intentional, if I'm not being respect, reflect, relate minded, I can feel like, oh, now I have to mop. Oh, I gotta go find a towel. And I'm not, when I'm doing that, when I'm feeling that way, I'm not responding to the child. I'm just responding to the space, right? And so I really like that when we think about being in relation with children with intention, we are talking about intention to and with that child. And it's I think it's a long road to get to the point where we are not just lumping babies in with all the rest of the stuff we have to do today. But I think it's a road worth taking. And I think that it helps us really see and value the babies that are in relationship with us and in spaces with us. And even if we're not in control of those spaces, maybe we are at the grocery store or at a library or, you know, any place that we could run into children that aren't our children. We can be intentional about being in space with those children and be like a stronger force of like good and health and responsiveness that we know helps develop brains. And so we can develop our baby's brains and we can develop other brains that are around us too. Leah. like keeping all of that in mind, thinking about intention and thinking about like recording our observations, like we said, maybe through journaling or learning stories or any variety of ways. Can you talk to me about how you can take all of that over time to help put your knowledge about development into action through respect, reflect, relate?
Yeah. And I think, again, looking at it for like the perspective is we're really hoping our audience here is families or grown-ups who maybe aren't like caring for children professionally, but who are like, I have this child in my life and I want to connect with them and I want to support them. And so some of these ideas might feel overwhelming or like, oh my gosh, why would I do that? But one of the key tenets of respect, reflect, relate is to see this child in this moment, but to also see this child over time. And the benefit to being aware of what a child does now and how that changes or grows over time, we talked about last episode. It gives you an idea of what their trajectory is and what skills they're learning at what pace. And so when we have an opportunity to document things, whether it's the post-it in your pocket or through learning stories or through journaling or even through like text messages, right? If there's someone in your life that you're like, let me share with you what this child is doing. It is a great way for us to reflect on the growth and the mastery of skill that children have. And I think it really helps us to have an appreciation for just how much is going on cognitively and just developmentally across the body in all domains for a child these first 3 years of life as they are learning and listening and engaging and mastering all these new skills.
Yeah, and we have provided, I think, or we can, I think we should have provided last episode. We've got those
Did.
resources for like the ages and stages questionnaire to kind of give you an
Yes.
overview, as well as our Colorado early learning and development guidelines. Also, your pediatrician might be able to tell you about some
Mhm.
of the progress of development that your child is going through, and kind of what you're looking for next. And I think that we've also provided lots of other, um, I would say, very like seasoned professionals on the internet who can tell you
Mhm.
about um, early learning or learning overall and kind of what the process looks like and have ideas about how you can extend some of that learning. So if you want to message into the golden threadcast at gmail.com because you're like Jesse and Leah sound like they've got a lot of really cool ideas for babies, we would love to share our ideas as well. Um, but just knowing that that it is a process, you're meeting a baby where they're at and you're walking with them to the next step and the next step and the next step. And there's lots of ways to understand where those steps are without being an early childhood like professional or experts, right?
So true. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're always
Um,
learning too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, we specifically get to constantly learn because we are providing these materials through like the professional development class that we do every single semester. And that means I get to learn like 20 new people every semester who are in relation with babies the same as I am, and I get to steal all their ideas.
Which is lovely. Crowdfunding at its finest. Crowd sharing, crowdfund.
Yes, crowd
Yeah,
sharing, I love it. Yeah. Or
yeah.
open source. Yeah.
Open source. That's it. Yeah,
We're
yeah.
open sourcing childcare.
Mhm.
So now that we've kind of discussed like how we can apply this tool to learning over time, I would like to take a moment. I would like to take a moment of pause, except we're not pausing, but I do want to take a moment to discuss this concept that we talk a lot about in the course, as well as something that I really value in, as I've discussed before, the way that I like to be in relation with children, where I'm just not interfering, I'm just giving them some time. You've mentioned your experience with the idea of what if you just wait, what happens if you wait for 10 seconds? Can
Yeah,
you explore that idea a little bit more?
certainly. Yeah, I think when I first took the course, that was something one of the instructors posed to us. And I remember being like, well, gosh, what happens if I'm in the infant room and I just wait 10 seconds? What will happen? And nothing terrible happened. I was worried because I very much am a worrier and want to control the situation and make sure everybody's safe all the time. And, but it was such a great way for me to then start thinking about that respect, reflect, and relate process and be like, well, if I'm really wondering, then I can stop and watch. And I'm always right there and I can step in if I need to. And it gave me permission, I think, to not feel like I needed to control everything all the time that the children were doing. And as a parent, that was a big change for me. We've talked before about how my daughter is much older than my son, and I just was in a very different place in life when I was parenting her as a young child, as I was when I was parenting my son. And with my daughter, I very much was very regimented. We had to do this, we had to go in a certain way, and I was very controlling of many things because I think my parents had some pretty specific expectations for us as children. And so I learned that, and that was part of my culture. But I think also being a young single parent, there was a lot I had to handle and manage and just needed to feel like I was in control of so that I could get to the next step, whatever that was in our day. And I remember one time my daughter wanted to paint her own nails. And she did it, and she was like painting her nails on the beige carpet in my apartment. And I was like, oh my gosh. And some spilled, and I was like, oh, and I was like, this is why I need to be in control of the things. And then I think about how I had this opportunity as a professional to learn and to grow and to wait, and probably couldn't have prevented the nail polish on the carpet. But if I had been more relaxed, I might have noticed that that was something she was really interested in, and I could have put something underneath for her, or we could have gone to a place where it would have been much easier to clean the nail polish off the linoleum as opposed to the carpet. And I share that in contrast to the story of my son, who was an infant, maybe a young toddler, and just had this fascination with water and how it moved. And there is a video that comes up every year on my social media of watching him, and he has like 4 or 5 different containers of water, like, a glass measuring cup and these little tiny cups that we would pack things in for school and all of these things. And he's just pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. And the parent that I was earlier, before this wait, would have been like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a mess. I can't let you do this. Blah, 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 blah. And by the time he came around and this happened, I was in a place where I was like, I'm comfortable waiting. I'm comfortable respecting this child, reflecting on what his goals might be. He might want to see what water looks like in all of these different places. So, how can I do that in a way that I feel comfortable with that doesn't disturb his play? So, we lifted that play up off on the floor and he got a tray and he did what he needed to do for a really long time because it was led by him and he was interested in it, and he just is pouring and pouring and pouring and is just so happy. And I think that really shows me how I've one of the many ways that I've grown and changed as a parent and as a professional, because I had that opportunity to practice waiting for 10 seconds and really connecting in with the child to understand what their goal was. And 99% of the time, it's not something that's going to get someone hurt or be stressful. It really is just an opportunity for us to connect if we just
Hmm.
wait.
Yeah, an opportunity for them to have an experience
Yeah.
if they just wait. Yeah. And I like how that kind of ties into a concept that I've experienced in my time in a toddler room of like moving on toddler time.
Mhm.
Um, if you've ever been in a professional care environment where there are a lot of children in, one room or one space, had compared the different ages, it looks a lot different. Toddlers are moving on a much different time than, say, a preschooler or a pre-K classroom. And so I talk a lot about the way that we move on toddler time, and we're not rushing from here to here to here. It's not about reaching those points. It's about what is happening. And so sure, it might take us 3 minutes to walk down a tiny hallway to get out the door, but in those 3 minutes, toddlers are experiencing different ways to move. They are noticing that there's other adults moving through the building. They are just any number of things that are happening for them in that moment. And so I'm not focusing on the rush. And I hope that as people are able to start exploring responsiveness and responsive care in their spaces, that they can find times when maybe their inclination is to rush, hurry and pick socks, hurry and pick a shirt, hurry and, get to the end. Maybe they can explore the idea of not having to get to the end and instead hanging out in that toddler time. And so, what if it takes an extra 10 seconds to get this part of getting dressed done, like what really happens, and consider meeting your baby where they're at and experiencing that moment with them and the sorts of development and learning that they can be doing in that space. And then if you notice that, oh, they want to put on three different shirts before they pick one, is there something that you can incorporate in your day that lets them put on more shirts? That sort of kind of concept of just being there in toddler time.
Hmm. Hmm. And I can say, like, that's a running joke at my house because yes, my youngest, we still run on his time and his schedule. Uh, but it gives you that opportunity to also just see the world through their eyes and the wonder. And I love how you're talking about it, like, yes, maybe they do want to practice putting on three shirts. My niece, for her first birthday, she so desperately wanted to dress herself. And so, like, I got her, like, hats and vests and different socks because then that way she was able to practice doing those things. Even though she wasn't ready yet with all of her motor skills to do it, it was something she was really interested in. And I think that's the gift of using respect, reflect, and relate is that you really clue in to what is important about children, whether it's moving at their pace, whether it's understanding or discovering something that's a new interest for them, or just really meeting their needs in a way that feels comfortable to them instead of convenient to you. It can be powerful.
Absolutely. Um, so now we would normally move on to key takeaways, but I really feel like that sentence right there kind of sums up my key takeaways from the idea of respect, reflect, relate, and using it as a tool, and um, like allowing our babies to explore the world through the lens of I just want to give them the moment to be who they are, so that I can see who they are and what they're doing. Did you want to add anything else to that?
I think, yeah, I agree. I think it gives us an opportunity, and like Jesse said, it's a tool, but it's not a tool you have to like take out and use. It's a muscle you practice, and you practice using, but it has just such incredible benefits when you have the chance to be intentional with the children in your life and really see them where they are and meet them there. It opens the whole world up for you.
I really appreciate that like imagery of it's a muscle that we're practicing. That's a good point and a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sane Man might have been bumping the microphone
Oh no.
while you were talking. She's being a little bit in my
Uh,
face right now.
I love fandom. That's okay.
Um, So we do want to hear from you guys. We've heard a little bit of feedback, just kind of anecdotally, but not like directly in the email and not any answers or questions or anything. So just know that we like those things. We want this to be a conversation kind of the same way that we're able to do it when we're doing the professional development. So we are leaving space for in the future for you guys to talk to us and ask us questions. But also, if you want to at any time tell us about how you think you could use respect, reflect, relate in your space with whatever baby you are caring for. And I also really like the question that we ask participants every single week. How will you know if it's helping?
Mhm.
Um, so if you guys want to kind of think about those concepts and message into us at the golden threadcast at gmail.com. Um, we would love to share your responses and think about it with you. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Leah, for this time together. I really appreciate our time.
Yes, me too. And thank you all for joining us.
Do you know what we're going to be discussing next time?
Next time, we will be talking about how we know intuitively how to meet babies' needs.
Yay. And so we can explore a little bit more of that like concept of you guys as parents know what you're doing, even though there's no manual for it.
You really know. We're just going to tell you the science why. Yes.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.